Now I'm pretty much done posting, but I forgot that Steve from Wyoming asked me to show him how I do the C.T.A.G.S system. Now Steve's got a great channel, just Google him, he'll come right up. Now C.T.A.G.S is a scoring system I invented a long time ago to determine ties, because there's so many ties in the current systems. And so here's how I do it. You just get an ordinary garbage can, and all of a sudden you're going to transform it into a positive displacement tank. Because in my system, you do the volume of the antlers and the height and the width. Because when you see an animal in the field, you say, look how high it was, look how wide it was, look how thick it was. So you take an ordinary garbage can, and you're going to use this fitting. And I'm just going to show you how to make one of these because they're pretty handy. I do all my antlers with it because it gives a more clear representative of actually how much antler the animal grew. Now this is what it looks like inside. You're just going to fill this thing with water. It's going to drain out. You attach the hose out and do it so it doesn't leak. And now all of a sudden you got a positive displacement tank out of an ordinary garbage can. And what I do is I use a measuring cup underneath with the hose. I fill it full of water. Okay, there's a measuring cup. I fill it till it quits dripping, and then the level is right. I put my drying rack on top. And what I'll do with the drying rack is I've got to attach the antlers on there with tie wire and put them in so that just the burr is at the water level, and just let it drip and make sure it's completely drained, and because you want to get the volume. So you immerse each antler to the burr because you want to get everything. And I just use tie wire again, and I drop it into the positive displacement tank. And now you want every little piece to measure every bit of volume. So you want it right to the burr. And there's what it looks like when it's actually at the volume on the top of the water. And now that antler will displace all the water that the volume of that antler has, and you can see how it starts dripping, and then just go have a coffee. Now, when you do both sides, left and right, you'll find they almost displace the same amount of volume, because most animals grow the same amount of antler on both sides. They just don't grow it in the right places. The current systems really deduct that, which is too bad, because in this case, we take the total volume, and you need to make a positive displacement tank, and you'll see it drips. And when it's finished dripping, you measure it, and it's measured in millimeters because my measurement system uses millionths because we don't want ties. Now the garbage can go back to its normal duties. Now the other thing we do is we measure how high it is. And now you take the highest measurement you can find from the center of the skull cap to the highest point. Then you do the widths, and same thing, you do it as wide as you can. It's measured in millimeters. I also record the inches. And now you've got the total width, you've got the total height, okay, and you've got the total volume, each antler displaced. And then you count the number of points. Now, it doesn't matter if you see a point, it is a point. Now, this point is actually deducted under the other systems, which is too bad. Now, you can see it had 9 points. Its height was 397 millimeters, and it was 15 5/8 inches high. It was 496 millimeters wide, or 19 6/8 of an inch. 620 milliliters on the right, 621 millimeters on the left, and it scored 2,134 mils of antler under the C.T.A.G.S system. So it's called C.T.A.G.S Total Antler Growth System. And I put my name on it. Now there's Pope and Young. They use their names. Henry Kelsey, which I'm a trained scorer at, he used his name. Boone and Crockett, they did too, and even Bushmasters. So this is C.T.A.G.S, Cody's Total Antler Growth System. And it gives you a clear volume with no deductions of how much actual antler each animal grew, how many points it had, and that sort of thing. And then I put it on a tag. Now, anybody can score it, but I officially do them, and this is my brand. I take a piece of leather, I cut a hole in it, okay, I put a strap. It's very, very simple. Now, anybody, again, if you want to build one of those tanks, that's awesome. But for it to be officially to go into the record book, it has to have a tag like this. And what I write on the back of the tag is the year I got it, You can see I measure even the score, Henry Kelty score, the height it was in inches, the width it was in inches. It was a 9-point in C.T.A.G.S. It was 2,134 mils of antler. Now you can see there's a tag there. I'll turn it over and it's a 9-point. You can see how tall, high it was, how wide it was, right on the front of the tag. So it was a 9 by 2134 under the C.T.A.G.S system, and I sign it, and it goes in the record books. Now, back in the day, it was either or, because the C.T.A.G.S system doesn't have non-typical or typical. The biggest antlers win. Now, even in the non-typical system, the current systems use deductions. Okay, and that's not a good thing, because these beautiful animals, I don't know how any true sportsman can take away anything from these beautiful animals, but the systems all do, and they use a 1/4-inch tape. It's almost impossible to measure anything with a 1/4-inch tape, something as intricate as some of these deer. The antlers they grow are incredible. But again, if you look at the scoring system, there's deductions. Doesn't matter whether it's a typical or non-typical, and that's not good. So in my system, it's total volume. Total volume of the antler. If it's a little thick point or a thin point, you get it. You get everything that animal grew for antler on its head. No deductions, no nothing. Now, I don't want to repeat myself, but under the current system, using a 1/4-inch tape, okay, it's very, very hard to give everything, to measure everything exactly. You got to measure it it's hard. Look at this. Just to measure that point with a 1/4-inch tape is definitely tricky. And you measure the circumferences at the smallest place, so you don't give credit for anything if it's got a great big point. You don't get nothing for that, and that's using the current system. Now, I scored this, the Henry Kelty scoring system. It grossed 153, you can see, and it had 8 2/8 deductions, giving it a net score of 144 6/8, and that's what it scored under the Henry Kelty system. And now you take a look at Helge's buck. You score that under the same system. Look at the mass of this thing. How do you measure that with a 1/4-inch tape? You have to take the volume to get a clear indication of how much antler Helge's deer grew. I mean, there's no way a 1/4-inch tape can do it. And also the biggest velvet buck of all time. Look at this thing. It's massive, but how do you squeeze a 1/4-inch tape in there and measure everything? And even if you measure that drop tine, you only measure it in inches. There's no consideration for volume. There's some deductions involved. It's really not the best system in my point of view. That's why I did the C.T.A.G.S system, because it gives you a clear idea of how much actual volume. There's no deductions again, and it gives you an idea the volume, the actual volume that this deer grew. I mean, it's a massive, massive deer, but there's no way, again, you can give it justice by trying to squeeze a tape in there or even measuring this drop tine. I mean, all you get is the actual length of it. You don't get any of that major volume, which is really unbelievable. And so that with the C.T.A.G.S system, you would get all that volume. You would immerse those antlers in that positive displacement tank, and it would tell you exactly how much antler it grew. Total amount. And the same thing goes with this one. You can't do it justice with a 1/4-inch tape. And even looking in my collection, look at the size of that drop tine and half of these antlers. I mean, there's no way you can give it justice by a 1/4-inch tape, because you're not measuring. You're only measuring the outside curve. You're not getting any credit for those big, thick drop tines. Everything, or even the brow tines. Look how thick they are. You get nothing for that except a measurement. Even some of the smaller animals I got, it's all 1/4-inch tape. It doesn't do it justice. And that's why I invented. Now, there's the one we just did. It scored 2,134. And you can see some of these other racks. I mean, there's no way. You'll get nothing for that drop tine under the current system. And even my elk that I made the record books with. Now, they gave me a free copy when I made it. I think I was 211th in the world. I was tied with four other guys. One of the other fellows I was tied with was had a lot bigger. It grossed a lot bigger than mine. And a lot of people go by the gross, but even that's not a true indication. Because when you take all the deductions off these deer and subtract them, you just err to the smallest animal. You err to it because by subtracting those points, now all of a sudden you're equalizing it with the little animal that didn't grow any of those points. Now, I shot a really, really big deer. It grossed over 200, but it only netted 171 and 2/8. I share the record book with 61 other guys. And we rank 3,589th position in the world, according to Boone and Crockett. But there's 61 ties, you guys. Not one of them grows the same. So when you take these deductions in these current systems, you err to the smallest deer. The animal might as well not even have grown them. That's why I established the C.T.A.G.S system, because it's a true representation of what the actual antler grew. I hope some of you young sportsmen watch this video, share it out, and do this, because it's got to come to the point where the animal's got to get credit where credit is due, and this system does. Thank you very much for watching. Please donate to cancer. And I don't think I'm going to be making any more videos, but thanks again, Steve, for asking.